Welcome to the MSDW podcast. I'm Jason Gumpert, editor at msdynamicsworld.com. On this episode, we are discussing the state of the Business Central ecosystem from the perspective of my guests from Cavallo, Matt Abbott and Bob McAdam. This episode is sponsored by Cavallo, and we begin by recapping some of the themes that Microsoft emphasized at the recent Directions North America conference around verticalization, the balance between ISV apps and custom code, and Microsoft's goals for on-prem to cloud ERP transition. Microsoft is also just getting its partners and customers up to speed on its vision for AI-related services. Business Central is one of the products downstream of those efforts, and we talk about where some of the opportunities and challenges lie. Cavallo has also been evolving their own approach to supporting e-commerce initiatives, and Matt and Bob update us on some of the company's partnership successes with commerce-focused ISVs and the ways they're going to market together, especially to solve more challenging problems. And my guests tell us what's next in the event calendar, their community efforts, and more. All right, well, I'm here with Matt Abbott and Bob McAdam from Cavallo. Great to have you both here at a time when it does feel like there's a lot to discuss. Maybe it's the approach of Microsoft's fiscal year end. Maybe it's some of the events that have already happened or that are going to happen, but a lot in the community and sort of a lot to look forward to, I would say. And so a great time to have this conversation about what's coming up in the Microsoft space and the business application space. Well, maybe we can start with just a couple of introductions. So Bob McAdam, welcome back to the podcast. Great to have you here.
Thanks, Jason. Always great to be joining you here. Bob McAdam, Vice President, Strategic Partnerships here at Cavallo. I work with our reseller partners primarily to make sure that we're meeting expectations with them on both the GP and BC side of the house. So never a dull moment and great opportunities to work with some tremendous partners, many of whom have been in the space a long time. So I thoroughly enjoy it.
And I'm Matt Abbott. I'm the Chief Strategy Officer here at Cavallo. My primary responsibility over the past couple of years really has been leading the charge regarding our entry into the Business Central ecosystem. As an ISV with hundreds and hundreds of customers in the GP ecosystem, it's critically important and exciting for us to enter this very dynamic space. No pun intended.
All right. Well, great to have you both here. I thought a good place to start would be kind of recapping the Directions North America event. It's a big event on the sort of the Business Central and I guess the SMB ERP calendar every year for Microsoft and Microsoft's channel. Can you give me some of your impressions of what some of the key trends were at the event from your perspective, being there, talking to a lot of partners? Matt, do you want to go first?
Sure, I'm happy to. Well, first of all, I think, particularly here in North America, it's been a question, frankly, about the momentum, the growth of Business Central, given that many folks have more of a GP frame of reference than a NAV frame of reference. And it was very clear just how much momentum is building around and has been building with Business Central. The future is extremely bright. And I heard, multiple times that Business Central's growth is, frankly, even exceeding some of the expectations and plans that, Microsoft had themselves. And so just at a macro level, that trend is certainly very, very clear. And a lot of that, has to do with continuing robustness and build out of the feature set, performance of the platform, et cetera. But also, for us, the growth and support of the ISV network. And so that certainly is a very positive sign. The other thing that, clearly stands out that is hard to ignore is key technology developments such as AI. It's very exciting to be in the Microsoft ecosystem because I think we benefit from the fact that, Microsoft is not only an ERP publisher, but also, a very broad and frankly wealthy participant in the broader technology landscape globally, and therefore is able to invest in technologies like AI at a scale and pace that, other tech companies, many other tech companies cannot, and certainly other ERP publishers cannot. And therefore, pretty exciting to see some of those investments starting to pay off and starting to see sort of real use cases. And while that's exciting, there's also, some trepidation there in terms of, potential impact on development and developers, things of that nature. So those are the two things that really sort of popped to the surface for me.
Yeah, the Direction Show was tremendously successful in 2023 in Orlando. It was our second time as a sponsor at Directions. Our first foray was in 2022, same hotel, same location. And we were silver sponsors, and it was enjoyable, and it got our feet wet in the BC space. This time we bumped up to gold. We had a really excellent booth placement, time on stage, an opportunity to show off our offerings in a session. And just, as Matt said, the enthusiasm for Business Central was walking the hallways at the Hyatt in Orlando. There were record attendance, great buzz in the hallway, great opportunity to meet with partners, many of whom know us from the GP days, but many of whom have never heard of us. And, they're finding out that we're good with managing orders and customers and whatnot in the BC space. So they're coming over to ask lots and lots of questions. So it was a really great show. I felt like it was a nice turning point for us. Yeah, we're new in the BC space, but we're not new, rather, to Microsoft Dynamics. And the opportunities that were presented to us with other partners who, are experiencing the same growth in the Business Central space and are seeing bigger customers garner interest in this platform, this application, they're coming over to us and trying to see how we can help solve some of their problems as their customers and opportunities get bigger, with BC's growth.
One of the sort of subtexts that I was picking up on at the event, and as you were talking, I was trying to think of specific examples, and I couldn't come up with any just now, but I really felt like there was a message underlying a lot of what Microsoft presented along the lines of sort of de-emphasizing customization and emphasizing that service providers and customers look to ISVs for solutions to their problems instead of encouraging partners to go out and build custom extensions, right? Did you get that sense in terms of your conversations with VARs at the event? Because this was, Directions is obviously a partner-focused event. There's no customers there. But that was one of the themes I maybe just felt more than saw a lot of specific evidence of.
Yeah, there's no question that they are emphasizing ISV solutions over the traditional Dynamics NAV customization mentality. Let's call it that for lack of a better term. So the GP partners that have added Business Central to their arsenal, they're already accustomed to that thought process. And now the traditional Dynamics NAV resellers are turning that corner and looking to ISVs like Cavallo to solve some of their problems with prospective customers. So there's no question that Microsoft is working that angle diligently, and we're happy to be a part of those conversations. So it's going to take longer for some than others, obviously, but I feel like that momentum is building and that ISV opportunities are really robust in the BC channel.
You're absolutely right. And, it really comes to roost in a couple very tangible ways. First of all, the support of the ISV ecosystem with AppSource and the just dramatic growth in the number of, apps listed on AppSource. The number that I heard, and this is secondhand, was now exceeding 7,000. And so, Microsoft investing heavily to build a marketplace that supports a, diverse variety of add-ons that help provide a sort of flexibility, robustness, and in our perspective, verticalization. I think, the fact that Business Central is largely a horizontal oriented ERP, right? Leveraging ISVs to provide that sort of vertical expertise that is so critical to winning against some of the competition out there. The second piece, and admittedly, I'm certainly not an expert here, but the Universal Code Initiative, and being very clear that Microsoft prefers that companies use standard offerings, whether they're from Microsoft or from ISVs like us, and then having a tangible, real financial cost if companies decide to customize Business Central. I've seen examples of that, of companies that are still pushing in a more custom direction, having to spend $2,000-$3,000 a year to, and I'm sure it goes up from there, to build custom features. And so Microsoft really is pulling a number of levers to avoid and shift away from custom development.
Yeah, and it's interesting, the incentives to adopt standardized software and like Bob said, it may be sort of a cultural shift. And it's interesting with Business Central because the heritage of Dynamics NAV that really, I think, differs in, place to place and industry to industry, where the history of some places involved huge levels of customization, almost making an AV unrecognizable, which is very different from the approach that Business Central takes today. And all of that is, I guess, in a sense, converging in today's offering. And like you said, the incentives, the disincentives that Microsoft's putting in place now, it really is going to not only force existing customers, but partners to, stay aligned, I guess, is the easiest way to put it. And there's probably going to be some friction there, I think, over the short term or medium term for especially partners. I would not say as much for ISVs like you at Cavallo because of all the adapting you've already done, but for your partners out there, they have to make changes to the way they operate and the way they, I think, interact with customers. Is that something you're seeing at all out there in the field?
Absolutely. There is a transition that many partners are going through. And for us, as we introduce ourselves and get to know partners that historically come from the nav side, if you will, it really is interesting to see where they stand on the spectrum, if you will. Some of those partners are already fairly comfortable with a more ISV-oriented set of solutions, whereas some, are still leaning more towards and come from a heritage of more custom development. And therefore, it really gets down to a unique discussion with each of these partners. And to some extent, each human being, each employee, based on their history and where they lean. And therefore, as now they are learning, I think that the job of the solution architect in the BC space is just critically valuable, so that those solution architects really do have an understanding of, what ISV solutions are available, which ones are proven, reputable, et cetera. So therefore, they can make the right build versus buy trade-offs on behalf of the customers. And what I would also say is that, hearkening back to the point I made earlier, that there are now over 7,000 apps in AppSource. That's not an easy job for those partners, for those solution architects to really, zero in on, the top 20, 30, 40 that they're going to sort of focus in on, work with, et cetera, given how many there are out there. And so it is a very, fast moving situation, and one in which I think there are some sort of critical roles within the partner community that really are at the sort of coalface of getting this right.
In other words, being a Microsoft Dynamics SMB partner is really, really challenging, probably more so than ever before. As Matt said, you have these existing customers, be they on GP or SL or NAV, and they have multiple ISVs, some of whom may or may not be in the Business Central space just yet, or they have custom code or whatnot. And being a solutions architect and trying to figure out how to best deploy an existing customer running an older version of Microsoft Dynamics onto Business Central is really got to be challenging. It's one thing to entertain someone scaling their business, let's say on QuickBooks or something simple like that, looking for a real ERP system to grow into. It's completely different. Someone that's been running an ERP on SQL Server on premises for 15, 20 years, and you got to figure that all out and figure out how they best get on to Business Central and what combinations of ISVs will play well together and fulfill all the requirements that have clearly been built up in their current system for a long time. So being a partner is not easy work. And like he said, there are 7,000 apps to pick from, which ones are best, which ones play best together. It's indeed challenging for sure.
Yeah, I can imagine that, Bob, when I think of sort of what your responsibilities, the conversations you must have, 7,000 listings in AppSource does not really help anyone in any tangible way. That's where I imagine making sure that your partners know exactly what you as an ISV or any ISV's responsibility to make sure that their partners know what they can deliver, going far beyond what an AppSource listing can explain, is got to be even almost more critical as AppSource gets bigger and I guess more important, you might say, but
right.
Arguably. But those relationships, those successes together must be even more important than ever.
Yeah, they really are. And my colleagues and I are trying to make Cavallo, top of mind with every reseller in the channel that we can. And you're right, there's a lot of competition, but if we can keep knocking on that door, continue to show off the tremendous work our development team is doing, and those guys and gals are running 100 miles an hour every single day, to improve our offerings for Business Central. If we can continue to do that, those relationships will pay off and we will see growth, and we will see, more importantly, customers leveraging our offerings and scaling their business on Business Central beyond what the expectations were when they got started with us. So it's exciting. It's a daily challenge, but one we are most certainly up for.
Maybe we can transition a bit here. One of the topics that was, again, really front and center at Directions, because it's front and center, kind of, I guess, the broader landscape is Microsoft's AI investments and the progress that they're making there. And they reported quite a bit of progress and showed off things at Directions. And I think everyone knows they'll continue to do that, into the foreseeable future here, both, AI services directly tied into Dynamics products and Power Platform, but also their broader cloud services for AI that ISVs can use, that then customers can develop on top of all sorts of possibilities at this point, right? Many of them sort of still to be realized. But I wanted to get your take on it. What did you think of the Business Central team's sort of approach to AI usage, AI tools today, and their vision for it? Matt, do you want to go first?
Absolutely. I was quite impressed. It's hard to take investments like this and quickly translate them in a conference-like setting to real tangible outcomes where you see the value immediately. Sometimes announcements like this feel like there's more sizzle than steak. And, I would say that some of the announcements and specific use cases, will have frankly limited value or very targeted value. So, for example, Microsoft sharing things like product information management, being able to quickly improve and build, frankly, descriptions of products for use in e-commerce settings, for example. I thought there would certainly be some uses for that, particularly for companies that have limited marketing departments, but certainly help accelerate the work of writers, content writers, roles such as that. The area that I certainly saw being more disruptive and broadly applicable was on development and really developing code, particularly with the ability to leverage, I'm sure, some of the models and learning that come with owning GitHub. It's pretty clear that Microsoft is looking to disrupt software development. And I certainly, as I walked the halls and asked other attendees what their primary takeaways were, it really did revert back to that disruptive aspect of AI and applying it to sort of that mid-level software development and being able to, quickly develop features and code without the need for sort of mid-level development. And so I think there is, again, something exciting about that in terms of, being in the Microsoft ecosystem and being able to rapidly extend Business Central, leveraging the broader Microsoft investment in AI, but also, frankly, a little bit of a scary aspect in that, with AI moving so quickly, it does call into question the viability of some of those roles and the need for some of those roles. And that tenor of both excitement, but a bit of trepidation was something that I certainly felt while at Directions.
Yeah, watching Microsoft talk about AI at Directions was impressive. I mean, even on the last day, Mike Morton came out for the last general session, making a claim that he didn't know he was going to be on stage and have a segment on that final day of Directions. So he walks out there, makes that claim, probably true, but who knows, and then begins banging away on the keyboard via Bing and asking questions that everybody can see him type, and then reading the answers that ChatGPT is giving him on the screen. So his preparation was minimal, and he got his point across. Here I am being asked to do a segment at Directions on the last day in a general session, and I'm not prepared. So I'll leverage artificial intelligence to help me execute on this task, even though I'm not prepared for it that much. So it was really a simple example of how someone like him could fulfill a need. And now we're going to sit here and watch and continue to watch people try and figure out the best ways for customers and partners to leverage AI in places like Business Central. It's going to be very exciting to watch. It has been already, and we're really just getting started. I attended a local meeting last week here in Tampa, and the speaker was talking a little bit about AI, and he's like, this is really going to be the next big thing that envelops all of us. First, there was a PC in your home. Then there was the mobile device and the internet. We all interact with those things each and every day. And now it's going to be artificial intelligence. And watching that come in, as Matt said, is exciting and a little frightening at the same time.
Let's talk about e-commerce specifically, because we were talking about product information. How do you sort of align what you saw from Business Central, product information developed via AI, with what digital commerce looks like today? Matt, do you want to take this?
Sure. This is something that we've been experiencing over the past 5 to 7 years, certainly on the GP side. So I feel like we are well prepared and well positioned to be of great assistance to companies that either are very e-commerce oriented, very omni-channel in nature, or want to go there. But clearly, if you think about where we are now, just feels like just about every company needs to, be prepared to generate business across multiple channels, have orders coming in from multiple sources, whether those are their own websites, marketplaces, EDI, etc. The source of orders is becoming more and more diverse, and the buyers are becoming more diverse. There are companies that traditionally were more wholesale oriented, selling perhaps in a truckload, then less than truckload, and now selling single items to end consumers. And so all of that brings quite a bit of complexity, whereby companies used to have pretty standard processes because their business was fairly vanilla. More order sources means more complexity. And so for us, given our years and years of experience helping companies manage in omni-channel environments before perhaps they were really referred to as being omni-channel, we're ready to help. And our workflow engine in particular is extremely robust, applying tremendous automation, flexible business rules, and really allows companies to bring in orders from many sources into Business Central and then get them out the door as fast as possible, whether that's managing back orders, splitting orders, things of that nature that become more and more critical to success. We're here to help, and our software is very, very good at helping companies do that. As we work with partners, like a Dynamic Web as an example in Business Central space, they're great at helping companies build out their e-commerce presence, manage product information, et cetera, and then bring those orders into Business Central. We can pick them up from there and apply all the automation, the business rules that I mentioned. And so we work very, very well with companies like that to bring that 1 + 1 = 3 set of capabilities and value to end customers that really do want to grow their business and expand their profitability through e-commerce and other channels.
Yeah, Matt's right. We have customers scaling their business, and there's more to sales orders than manual entry. We have a variety of different opportunities here and a variety of different partners with whom we're working. And it's exciting to be able to offer omni-channel excellence with our offerings. No matter how a company wants to generate revenue, we're going to be there to help them make the most of it, and they'll scale their business faster and grow accordingly. So that'll make us all look good, and that'll bring new work in for resellers and ISVs like Cavallo. So it's exciting. The e-commerce piece is exciting. You can see it on the consumer side. I can see it at my front door pretty much 7 days a week. So I know it's a big deal in a growing marketplace, and we're excited to be right in the middle of that with all of our alliance partners and reseller partners in the Business Central space.
I'd like you to talk to me a little bit about the workflow and process automation side of things. What we see from Microsoft is obviously a lot of interest in sort of moving more and more processes into Power Platform, tying that into Business Central. Again, there's the AI sort of element of trying to build processes with natural language, in theory at least, but it goes so much, process obviously goes so much deeper. And I think it's really critical to what, Matt, you were just describing. How do you make sense of what Microsoft's doing with workflow and how Cavallo as an ISV sort of complements that?
So first of all, I think that, kudos to Microsoft. I think they are doing a number of exciting things with the Power Platform overall and Power Automate specifically. And in the not too distant future, we anticipating having the ability or enabling the ability for customers to essentially use Power Automate to extend what we bring out of the box. And I think the point being out of the box. We've got 20 years of experience serving hundreds and hundreds of companies that we've learned from. And we have built the standard automations, business rules, managing payment terms, managing gross margin levels. All of that's available out of the box. And 20 years of experience and best practices are built into the workflow engine that we've built that is extremely graphical in nature, no code, very easy for end customers to build their workflow that is specific to their business, leveraging the tools that we provide. I think to contrast that, Power Automate, while extremely useful, would require essentially a bespoke set of processes and sort of a development effort, if you will. Obviously, faster one than is historically possible, but each company's workflow would be one-off. And someone then has to maintain that, extend it over time. Whereas, with Cavallo, given our 20 years of experience and capabilities built, quote unquote, in the box, if you will, companies can deploy and trust that we have all of those capabilities for them and really bring their business from good to great very, very quickly. And so we, again, are impressed with what Microsoft is doing and see it as a strong complement to our capabilities, but certainly not a replacement by any means.
Yeah, we are not playing Plinko with customer orders, right? When you play Plinko and you drop the disk in, you don't know where it's going to go and how it's going to go out the door. Orders come in, orders go out the door, but what happens in between there, often a mystery. Our workflow is reducing those mysteries 100%, and each and every order that comes in the door, regardless of the way it comes in, goes through the process it's supposed to. So you know exactly where it's going, the path that it's following, and that it gets out the door the right way the first time. So no Plinko with our workflow. We know exactly where documents are flowing in the system, and business owners will have that confidence when they deploy our solution. It's really robust, and like Matt said, no code. So it can be deployed quickly and easily in Business Central. It's really remarkable.
And one, if that's okay, I'd like to maybe add on a couple other quick points. We've solved some of the, I would say, nagging gaps with Business Central that have perplexed distributors, light manufacturers, product-oriented brands that want to grow with Business Central and frankly have led to custom development over time, one by one. And those couple of those that come to mind are reservations and managing inventory. And so we've built an extremely easy to use yet robust inventory allocation engine that's built right into our software, as well as SOP to POP or sales order processing to purchase order processing connections so that POs can be created, immediately and automatically as necessary. So those are just two examples of, gaps in Business Central that we've already addressed. And so there's no need for an end customer to spend money building something with Power Automate or in other ways that we've just already addressed. And companies can benefit from our investment and our ability to solve those problems at scale very, very quickly.
Jason, we had more than one partner come to our booth at Directions in April in Orlando, asking about SOP to POP, asking about a better way to do reservations, asking about if we've remedied prepayments. So Matt's right. We have taken our experience in the GP space and looked to see where some of those nagging problems can be solved in Business Central and have produced results. So partners who found out that we do order management well, we're coming over to our booth and asking very specific questions about some of those nagging problems. And we were able to show them solutions that will prevent them from customizing, yet again. So all good.
And it's such a great example of how sophisticated the scenarios are that companies look to Business Central to solve, right? It's not rapid deployment all the time. There's some of that in the space, but there's very, not necessarily huge deployments, but very complex and sophisticated ones.
Right.
Great. Well, before we leave, I did want to get an update from you on sort of where the community can find you going forward. We talked a lot about the Directions NA event, which was a few weeks back now. What's next for the Cavallo out in the world?
Well, we're headed to the desert later this month for DynamicsCon Live out in Scottsdale the week before Memorial Day. So we are very excited and sponsoring once again. On the front end of that show, we are also sponsoring the Innovia customer event, which is right out front. We are excited to be sponsoring both. I'm on the advisory board for the Dynamics user group, and so is Tom Dorn, their chief marketing officer at Innovia. So that has really helped us accelerate our relationship with Innovia, which is very healthy. And they really like our solutions and are working diligently to roll them out with their customers. So we're excited to have back-to-back events out in the desert later this month. DynamicsCon Live growing nicely each and every year. Molly and Liz doing a fabulous job. So I'm ready to get out there and get to work. I know it's going to be 50% plus better attendance than we had only 8 months ago in San Antonio. And that trajectory is exciting.
Yeah, certainly promising. Matt, anything else you would add?
A couple things. One, for Cavallo, we're at an exciting inflection point for us in that by entering the BC ecosystem, we are really opening up the world for Cavallo. And so we are starting to plant flags internationally for additional opportunities to grow our business. And as a result, we are a community sponsor for the Dynamics Minds event in Slovenia coming up, unfortunately, at the exact same time as DynamicsCon Live. So we will not be in person in Slovenia, but we certainly appreciate the opportunity to be a community sponsor in parallel with Doug for that one. And then, of course, excited to see a number of familiar faces at Community Summit in Charlotte. And of course, hearkening back to our global growth, the Directions EMEA show in Lyon, France later this year. So a lot coming up for Cavallo.
Where we won't be is probably a shorter list, Jason.
I hear you. Yeah. Well, thank you both so much for coming today. Great chatting with both of you as always.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jason. Appreciate it very much.
This has been another episode of the MSDW podcast. My thanks once again to Bob and Matt for shedding light on what they're seeing in the BC space. And this message from Cavallo, for those of you interested in continuing today's conversation or seeing a demo of Cavallo, reach out to Matt Abbott. You can send him an email, matt.abbott@cavallo.com. That's ABBOTT. And that's it for this episode. If you want to get in touch with me, you can reach me by email, jgumpert@msdynamicsworld.com. For all of our updates, please do follow us on LinkedIn or on Twitter. Until next time, this is MS Dynamics World, signing off.